Hello and welcome back to anyone and everyone watching. Today I'm going over the top 10 NASCAR drivers heading into the 2023 season with no racing plans announced whatsoever. As of the making of this video, it's pretty much mid-January, so by now most teams in the top 3 divisions of NASCAR have already come out with their driver lineups and are preparing for Daytona. But there are still a handful of good teams and drivers, mostly in the Xfinity and Truck Series, that have been completely silent since the last race of 2022. That is, if they even made it that far. Before getting started, here's my criteria for making this list. First, I'm only including trucks, Xfinity, and Cup drivers who competed in at least one race in 2022, so no ARCA drivers. And secondly, I'll not be including any drivers who race primarily for their own teams, such as Brett Holmes or Timmy Hill, even if they have not announced their intent to return. But everyone else is fair game, so without any further ado, let's get right into the list. Coming in at number 10 is Tate Fogleman. Only 22 years old, Tate has competed in 2 full-time Truck Series seasons with the Young's Motorsports in 2020 and 2021. The highlight of his career by far has been his wild upset win in the 2021 Fall Talladega race, as other than that, he's just about driven as good as his equipment allows him to, only scoring one additional top 10, recording a best average finish of 22.9 back in 2020. This past season, he was planning to race full-time for On Point Motorsports in their number 30 Toyota, but after the Gateway race, around halfway in the schedule, he was released from the team for undisclosed reasons, but likely due to a lack of sponsorship. After that, he went on to make 3 attempts in the second truck for Rackley War, but only qualified for the Pocono race, in which he finished a respectable 20th. The only reason he made it to the 10th spot on a best drivers list of any type is because he's a NASCAR winner, and I think he has potential to develop as a driver. And because there are relatively few drivers still without a ride. For each driver in this video, I'm also going to be giving my prediction for where they'll most likely end up in 2023, and for Tate, I either see him returning to the second Rackley War entry full-time or part-time, or just scraping together whatever deals he can get with backmarker teams. In 9th is Colby Howard, after having competed in only 4 ARCA races and 2 truck races between 2018 and 2019 with very mediocre results. Colby signed on with JD Motorsports to run the majority of the 2020 Xfinity Series schedule behind the wheel of the number 15 car. Despite crashing out 5 times in only 22 starts and recording a lackluster average finish of 24.9, JD Motorsports decided to bring him on full-time in 2021. But at around halfway through the season, he had shown basically no improvement at all. In fact, he took a step back, his average finish dropped to a 26.5, and he failed to qualify for 2 races. On top of that, he only scored 4 top 20s, also failing to improve his best finish of 12th from the previous year's Summer Daytona race. Then, to make matters worse, allegedly due to his announcing that he'd be competing for Mick and Alex Hilgeman Racing's truck team in 2022, he was released from JD Motorsports following the 24th race at Darlington. When 2022 rolled around, he was in his new number 91 truck, teammate to Derek Kraus. He proceeded to have about the most mediocre season in the series, totaling 3 top 10s, 3 crashes, an average finish of 19.4, and a 17th place finish in points. Now, entering 2023, he's not announced anything NASCAR related, but I have heard some rumors about him going to GMS racing. Anyway, I say Colby deserves about whatever he can get with the funding he has, because he has shown good potential at times, but has most definitely not earned a better ride from his on-track results alone. Next up is Alex Labbe, after a 5-win championship-winning season in 2017 in NASCAR's Canadian League, the Pinty Series. Most have known Alex as being an Xfinity driver for DGM Racing. In 2018, 2020, and 2021, Alex ran full-time between the 36 and 90 cars, scoring a best points finish of 14th in 2020. But this past season, Alex struggled to find funding in addition to posting 2 DNQs, which allowed him to only competing in 26 of the 33 Xfinity Series races. With that being said, and the fact that no announcements have come from DGM Racing regarding his 2023 plans, we could very well see Alex disappear from the sport altogether. But I think most likely DGM will do everything in their power to bring him back for at least a partial schedule like in 2019, because although 2022 was a step in the wrong direction for the team, Alex has proved to be a serviceable driver over the years, as he has scored 1 top 5 and 13 top 10 so far, and is always a force to be reckoned with at road courses. Coming in at number 7 is Danny Bohn. He was only able to race twice in 2022, but he did quite alright, coming home a solid 8th at Daytona and 22nd at Darlington, both for Young's Motorsports in the Truck Series. In the past, Bohn's had a fair amount of success racing modifieds, and did better than he was expected to, in my opinion, for On Point Motorsports and trucks, totaling 4 top 10s and only 33 starts for them between 2019 and 2021. For truck standards, he's also very consistent, only having crashed on 3 occasions ever. But unfortunately, if there's any driver on this list who I can see never racing in NASCAR again, it is Danny Bohn. Which is very unfortunate because even though he's 34 years old, he would be a great asset for any middle to back of the pack truck or Xfinity teams that just want a driver who won't tear up their cars. At the 6th spot is Max Gutierrez. Some of you may be familiar with Max for his epic 3-wide-of-the-line win in the 2021 ARCA East race at New Smyrna, but this past season he drove 4 times for AM Racing in the Truck Series. He did about as expected in 3 of his races, running and finishing around 20th, but at Nashville he certainly turned some heads with a P8, straight up beating guys like John Hunter Nemechek, Matt Crafton, and Ben Rhodes. With the news of AM Racing's expansion into Xfinity and ARCA over the offseason, I figured Max would likely land in their ARCA car and racing the Truck Series part-time again. But now that Christian Rose has been announced to be piloting their ARCA car full-time, that leaves very few options for Gutierrez. AM could run a second truck for Max, as they did once in 2022, but besides potentially splitting the 22 truck with Austin Wayne Self again, there are relatively few options for him entering 2023. My guess is he'll be racing part-time for a variety of teams, just taking whatever he can get. Coming in 5th is Myatt Snider. Just a couple of weeks ago, most probably assumed Myatt would be returning to Jordan Anderson Racing in the Xfinity Series, as he did alright for them in 2022, recording 1 top 5 and 4 top 10s, including a runner-up to AJ Allmendinger at Portland. But instead, the JAR team will be running 2 full-time cars for Jeb Burden and Parker Retzlaff, more or less throwing Snider to the curb for 2023. It is likely at this point that Snider will be taking a bit of a demotion as far as what equipment he'll be getting, because there are very few teams of Jordan Anderson Racing's caliber or higher with seats remaining. For the past few years, TaxSlayer has been a major sponsor for him, so as long as they plan on sticking loyal to Snider, I'm willing to bet he won't be going anywhere. Right now, my best guess is either part-time with the Joe Gibbs Racing number 19 Xfinity car, or potentially the 08 car for SS Greenlight Racing. In the 4th spot on this list is a driver who made hardly any starts in 2022, and that is Gaulding. Yeah, as you can see by putting him this far up in the video, I think more highly of Gaulding as a driver than most do. Let me try to convince you why. First of all, even though he's been in this sport for what feels like a decade by now, he's only 24 years old. Also, I'm well aware he was hyped up way too much in his early days of racing, as he only picked up 1 win in 43 East and West Series starts, which was a dump and run on Cole Custer. But once he got into trucks and Xfinity, it was a different story. Starting with trucks, in 2014, he made 9 starts with NTS Motorsports, scoring a best finish of 4th at Canadian Tire, along with a decent average finish of 17.1. For those who don't know, NTS is the same team that even truck legend Ron Hornaday Jr. failed to win within 2 full-time seasons. The next year, Gaulding raced once for Red Horse and 3 times for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and although he only managed to get 1 more top 10, his average finish of 14.8 was not at all an embarrassment. His only other good opportunity in NASCAR came back in 2016 with Roush in the Xfinity Series, where he finished 13th in both of his races with them. Again, not bad. From then on now, he's only ever driven for backmarket and underfunded teams, including in 2019, when in his only full-time season in NASCAR, he took a SS Greenlight Racing car to a 13th place finish in points, a truly remarkable feat given the team's past and future performances. Not to mention, he recorded a top 5, which is a runner-up at Talladega, and 4 top 10s that year. In 2020, he could only secure funding for a handful of races with SS Greenlight, but he made the most of them as he was P8 at Talladega and runner-up again in the Summer Daytona race. But those huge accomplishments seem to all be forgotten quickly thereafter, and in 2022, Gray only raced 2 times total. One was the P21 for Mike Harmon Racing at Talladega, which by the way should come off as very impressive considering Mike Harmon's team was in shambles this past season. His other race at Portland resulted in a DNF after an incident that was in no way his fault. So for 2023, Gaulding once again has no plans and will likely continue taking whatever opportunities he can get. But still, at such a young age, it is criminal how overlooked he's been. Next up in 3rd is Kaden Honeycutt, another driver who I'm ranking a lot higher than most probably would. With a couple cars and late model tour wins under his belt from 2021, Kaden came into the Truck Series for the first time this past year, and immediately started overperforming. Arguably his most impressive run came with G2G Racing in Nashville, where he crossed the line 21st and on the lead lap. For most other teams, this would be an average or even disappointing finish, but for G2G, easily the slowest and most breakage-prone team in the series, this is a pretty big deal. Later on, he took over for the previously mentioned Tate Fogleman at On Point Motorsports, where he went on to do a good bit better than Tate, with a best finish of 9th and 2 additional top 15s and only 7 starts with them. I hope and expect to see Kaden back at On Point or a better team for the full 2023 season. By the way, he's still only 19 years old, so he has plenty of time to develop into an even better driver. Coming in second is the former driver of Bill McAnally's Napa number 19 truck, Derek Kraus. After 3 years spent in the K&N Pro Series West for McAnally's team, it looked like Kraus had a bright future in NASCAR ahead of him, with 10 wins in the 2019 championship. But in trucks, Kraus had much the opposite fortune, showing winning speed on multiple occasions, but always ultimately coming short. Even worse for his case of finding a ride for 2023, he's seemingly gotten worse since his rookie year in 2020, as in 2021 and 2022, he earned fewer top 10s and his average finish worsened. And in all 3 years, he's come up just short of missing the playoffs, finishing 11th overall in both 2020 and 2022, and 13th in 2021. Nevertheless, you can't say Kraus doesn't still have potential or that he's already a NASCAR bust, because as mentioned, he's been within striking distance of a win, or at least led over 10 laps in multiple races. Also, this past season, we got to see how a second full-time McAnally driver paired up with Kraus for the first time, and let's just say it was pretty clear Kraus did better. The other driver in question, the previously mentioned Colby Howard, was worse compared to him in just about every measurable category, with 4 less top 10s, a 4.2 position higher average finish, and a 6-spot worse finish in the final standings. For 2023, I predict Derek will land in a 61 truck for Hattori Racing, but if not, he'll most likely have to settle for whatever he can get because his main sponsor throughout his career, Napa, is attached to his former team. Now to quickly run through 3 honorable mentions. First is Lawless Allen, who in his first full-time truck season last year didn't do terribly all things considered. It was pretty clear that his truck wasn't up to par with his teammate Carson Hocevar throughout the entire season, and given that, he did just about as expected, usually running right around with his other teammates Dean Thompson and Chris Wright, back in around 20th to 25th. I don't think Allen has any type of future in the Cup Series because his equipment was holding him back, but not enough to justify 0 top 10s and an average finish of 24.2. Still, I'll let him off easy because this is only his first full-time truck season, and he ended up being the most consistent of the 3 afterthought Nice Motorsports trucks. Next, we have JJ Yaley, the only Cup driver in the whole video. He did pretty much just how you'd have expected him to in Cup, with an average finish of 29.9 in his 19 starts with Rick Ware Racing, but in Xfinity, he had a couple of standout performances. In the full season effort with MBM Motorsports, Yaley put together his best year in NASCAR in a while, most notably with an 8th place finish at Portland, but he also survived the Summer Daytona Demolition Derby to bring it home in 9th. But with a 9 DNFs, mostly due to mechanical failures, Yaley slumped with 24th place finish in the standings. I'd be shocked if Yaley doesn't return to some extent in 2023, as he's seemingly been the go-to drivers for backmarker teams for over 10 years now. But as of the making of this video, he's not announced anything regarding his 2023 plans. And before I forget, the reason why I didn't include Ryan Vargas in this video is because it's pretty obvious if you follow him on social media that he does have a ride that he'll announce soon, but it just won't be made public for a few more days probably. The last honorable mention kind of goes against my rules I made at the beginning, and that is Brandon Brown. Even though he raced mostly for his own team in 2022, he's kind of an exception because he ran out of funding and had to hop between other teams for the rest of the year. I won't get too far down the rabbit hole with Brandon Brown. All I'm going to say is that although a situation following the 2021 Talladega win could have been handled much better, I still feel really bad for him. And it's pretty crazy to think if he finished second in the race or even just wrecked out, the post-race mess would have fallen upon a different driver, and Brandon would likely be getting ready to go for yet another full-time season in his number 68 car. But now, I would not be surprised to see him vanish from the NASCAR world completely, or at best continue to race for backmarker teams on a part-time basis. With that out of the way, now it's time for the best driver in all of NASCAR heading into 2023 without a ride, Trevor Bayne. For time's sake, I'm not going to be getting into immense detail about Bayne's whole career. If you want to see that, I just so happen to have made a mini documentary over Trevor Bayne a while back if you're interested. But for this video, I'm just going to be going over his most recent season with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. At the start of 2022, Bayne only had one goal in his return to the series, and that was to win, not just one but multiple races. Most thought he was being unrealistic, as he hadn't competed regularly in any form of racing since his last Cup season in 2018. But surprisingly, he did very well, much better than other primary driver of the 18 car Ryan Truex. In the end, he did just about everything he could except win, totaling 5 top 5s and 7 top 10s, including 2 second places and only 9 starts. Besides the wins column, those are pretty much Kyle Busch numbers. I originally assumed Trevor would be back full-time for JGR in 2023 because not only did he impress everyone with his results, but he seemed to have pretty solid backing from his new sponsor, Devotion Nutrition. There's still hope he'll be back part-time in the JGR number 19 car, but in my opinion, if he doesn't go there, he'll probably retire for good because I don't see him as the type to settle for less in terms of equipment. But that's all for today's video. Hopefully every driver mentioned here and all the others who did not make the list will all be successful to some extent in finding a ride for 2023. But in all realness, probably a good chunk of them won't. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, as you won't want to miss out on any future videos like these or my weekly silly season news recaps. Also, if you want to, go check out my video on Ryan Preece that I uploaded recently as part of my Best Part-Time Drivers of 2022 series if you haven't already. But yeah, that's all I've got to say, so until next time, peace out.